we can. I know, I don't like being up here. Even for select board, I don't like being up here.
Oh, they can't record if you guys all sit.
They said that it's really poor quality.
That's. I feel like more gets done around the.
Yeah, that's why I wanted just a workshop. And I think everybody else, because everyone went there first, I think everyone else had the same idea. But maybe.
Is it okay if I'm here?
I'll talk to Joe.
Hey, he made it.
There he is, our chair.
There, our chair has arrived. All right.
Thank you for making it.
We already started the meeting and elected your chair.
Oh, jeez.
You weren't here.
Hi, Zeke.
How was
He's
it?
even out of breath.
What?
You're out of breath.
I know.
There's air conditioned in here? Like, it's not too bad in here. I walked in, I was kind of expecting second floor temperatures.
It depends where you are in this building.
Is your office?
Yes, my office is
Okay.
usually warm.
Hi.
All right. So, John, I think we're, okay, oh, we're on the air. Okay, and I have to start the recording.
Excellent.
Recording in progress.
You did.
Okay. So, I'll read the opening, but do not take that as an indication of me chairing. All right, so welcome to the kickoff meeting, I'll call it, for the Budget Task Force on Thursday, July 11th. In accordance with the requirements of open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube page after the meeting. This meeting will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. To join the meeting remotely, the Zoom information is in the agenda. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, to be chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. Okay, the first thing, I think everyone's aware that the Finance Committee is meeting here at 7. So we have a hard stop, I'd say, at 6:45, which could be a good thing. So we're limited what we can accomplish, but I thought it was important to get together to get at least some of the logistics kinds of things out of the way, because it probably will be with vacations and so on a couple weeks before we could all, it's amazing that everyone could get together this soon, so thank you for adjusting schedules to do that. The first agenda item is election of chair, vice chair, and clerk. I don't, this is a question, have we ever had an employee as a chair of a, is that even an option? Or are we looking at Tony, Evan, and myself? Does anybody know?
I can't think of a situation in my time here that,
Probably, the opportunity probably hasn't,
no, it's.
is there anything prohibiting it?
Can I just say one thing?
Or unless Tony wants to be chair,
No.
I nominate.
I do not want to, I was going to say, I do not want to be chair. I have a lot of unpredictability in my schedule, and I would hate for my lack of attendance to hamper. And this is one of the reasons why the school committee has like a backup person who's Laura.
Yeah.
So I would kindly ask not to be, but if no one else wants to, and I have to, I will do it. It just might make it worse for people.
Could we do a
Okay,
co-chair
so-
with the school committee representatives?
You'd have, Laura's giving me a, okay, so one reason is that I am staying away from chairs. One, I don't think I'm the best person to do it. And two is, I just, there's too much on my plate. But the vice chair could step in if you're out. That's what we normally do.
I'm happy to be Evan's vice chair.
I was going to say, I'm happy to be told.
No, but seriously, Tony, if that's all you're worried about is missing meetings, if you
Yeah.
think you can handle
I have no
the
idea
work
what I've agreed to
outside
do.
of the
so I-
meetings.
That's what I said. I have no idea what I've agreed to do in terms of responsibilities. So, I mean, that's always a good way to get somebody to say yes. So like, I don't know. I mean, do we know what it's
Said
going
yes
to
like
entail?
twice already. You say it 3 times in Beetlejuice.
No, not really.
I think there's a lot of work that the chair would have to do outside of this meeting. And that's what is holding me back.
Can I ask what you think, why the chair's responsibility is higher than?
Well, I think, no, not that it's higher, I just think it's, it would be more, it's like herding cats. And it would, not just the getting the meeting set up, but just, thinking of the agenda. I mean, yes, everyone contributes ideas to setting meeting agenda and timelines and all of that, but you have to, I look at the chair as the person who's gonna drive that. If that's like lagging, if you're not hearing back from people, you gotta, you know.
I mean, one way around that is at each of the meetings, you set the next meeting's agenda,
Yeah,
schedule your dates ahead of time. So it's really just administrative of filing it with the town clerk, make sure it's posted.
okay. Tony's
Then just opening.
looking at me with wide eyes.
I just asked Dr. Burnham, if they might be able to help, because they do a lot of the organization stuff anyway. If that's the case, then I guess I'll do it then. So, yes.
I nominate Tony.
I second.
Evan, I think you're gonna have to be the vice chair.
We'll get to that bridge afterwards.
Yeah, okay. Is there, I don't even know why I'm doing it. Is there any other discussion? Okay, are we ready to vote then on Tony being the chair? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I
Thank you
abstain.
very, very much. You abstain, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Vote for yourself.
No.
Hunt.
Tony's meeting.
So I think the next order of business is still like the vice chair,
Do you
correct?
want this?
I got it.
Okay. Yes, the vice chair.
So I would nominate Evan Waters.
I second. Are you willing to do it?
How many meetings are you thinking you're gonna miss?
Well, so here's the
How many are we
thing
gonna
that's always
have?
like a schedule crunch.
Right.
If somebody gets arrested unplanned,
Is it an arrest ever planned?
oh, no, they're definitely, like, we do turn-ins all the time. Like, go down to the police station at this time and they won't, like, take you from your job.
Where's this going?
So if that happens or the court needs like an emergency lawyer, that's when things get complicated. Like today, I went to the police department with somebody and I did not have the ability to say, it ends now. So that's my concern.
So it's a last minute.
Yeah, I mean, like, I haven't, have I missed a school committee meeting? I mean, I came one
I
time
don't think you
late.
have.
Yeah, I mean, I missed like one for my son's track meet, but that was it. So, I don't think it'll be often, but if it happens, it's gonna be like 4:30 when I call you. So that's the issue. I just don't wanna make it unclear as to what my scheduling problem is.
As long as there's an agenda made, that makes
Okay.
it very easy.
All right.
But do we also want to go and have someone that's actually working for the town instead of elected or appointed officials,
Well, then
an
it's
actual
Ezekiel.
hired?
To be vice chair?
Yeah, we've,
One who works here.
right.
I'm willing to do it, I just, for the sake of, I guess, equity through the force, the task force.
It would be fine with me. I have no,
I'm okay with that.
Then I think we nominate Ezekiel to be the
okay,
vice
so,
chair.
so do we have to retract?
Okay, I'll make a motion to retract the nomination of Evan Waters.
Second.
That was smooth. Okay,
And then I would make another motion to make Ezekiel the vice chair.
second.
So do we need to do a vote?
We do.
All right, all in favor of Ezekiel being the vice chair?
Aye.
Aye. You got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ezekiel.
Thank you to both of you. Do we need a clerk? I put it on there because we need a clerk.
Organization, yes.
For organizing what?
For organizational purposes, usually
Oh.
chair, vice chair.
What would the clerk do?
Minutes?
Well, so I asked Laura.
Oh, I'll still do it.
Okay.
The school committee has a clerk and we still don't take minutes, so I don't,
Oh, okay.
it lets you guys focus on what you're doing.
But I did it as you were walking in and we weren't on yet, so, because Laura's going to be the alternate for the school committee. And I asked if she would be willing to do minutes as a way to, keep up anyway, in case she needed to step in for Tony at any time. She kindly agreed to do so.
Can we make somebody who's not on the, I mean, she's,
No,
Just a minute taker.
yeah, but it's gotta be one of you guys.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. I'd be clerk, I guess.
I nominate Renee
Sure.
to be the clerk. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Or maybe I should
Too late.
abstain, whatever. Okay. Good.
So the next matter on the agenda is meeting frequency and time. So I'm just going to throw this out there. 5:30 is a real push for me. Like
Yeah,
it'll be hard, but I also am respectful of the fact that at least two of these people are town employees and two others are district employees, so we
Yeah.
got to be
yeah.
cognizant of everybody's time.
I mean, we do have the remote option. I would like to think it's not gonna, we won't have someone remote all the time,
Yeah.
but 5:30 is not easy for me either.
Do you
But
think it'd
I can do it.
be better later?
It's, for me, it's always easier later, but I don't want to go late and keep people who have been working here all day.
If we did it at 7, but made the meetings hard stop at a certain time limit.
I defer to the non-volunteers. I mean, they were all volunteers, but the town and school employees.
Voluntold.
Voluntold. I can do 5:30. I mean, I can do early. I just need to know in advance.
I mean, I would prefer it to be a start time at 7 and ends at 8. If we could do that every time. I mean, I just have found, this is my own personal gripe, and I'm pretty
I know
vocal
you like
about it.
short meetings.
I love
That's
me
why
a
you're
short
chair.
meeting, especially because after a certain time of evening, like, I just have no attention span anymore. And so I don't want to make critical decisions when I have no attention span. I also don't want to make critical decisions when I have not eaten dinner. So I think that, like, if we could do 7 and then end at 8,
How do you guys,
I mean, I like, as long as we set the expectation.
that it's an hour.
Then it's an hour.
Yeah.
And the agenda's not 17 items. We have a focused agenda, then I think we're okay.
I think that, I mean,
But that's just mine, I can't speak for.
Dr. Burnham, what would you prefer?
It's fine. It's fine.
Is that realistic, Heather?
For an hour meeting? Well, I think.
There would probably have to be
more meetings, I think, maybe. But, that's something to think about. Too. I don't know. I mean, the frequency.
I mean, one idea that I had thought of is that if we have a time limit on agenda items, like when you go in front of I'll just say it, like when you go in front of a court, they tell you how much time you have, and you need to figure out a way to make all your arguments in that specific amount of time. If the purpose, based on the charge, is to be like a problem-solving group, then I think that might require more time. If the purpose is to identify problems and then pass them off to specific bodies within town government, then I think it requires less time. And I don't know if the charge clarifies sort of which approach we're taking.
I think that's up to us, how we get there, right? Because I can imagine taking it in little bite-sized chunks during the meeting and like going off, doing homework, and then coming back, right? So there's more work actually outside the meeting than during the meeting.
Yes.
So I can imagine, because there's a lot, targeted bite-sized bits. And so you could have short meetings, but they may be more frequent,
And it would require more homework.
and would require more homework. I mean, so what if a compromise? What if target the 1 hour meeting and there may be times every, I don't even know, let's say it's every 2 weeks. I don't want to meet more than every 2 weeks, hopefully. We can get away with no more than that. But anyway, occasionally there'd be a 2 hour meeting. That would, and if there was going to be a longer meeting, it would start earlier.
I like that.
Kind of just like as needed. If we've got to build up, this isn't working, we've got to get through, we've got a backlog of examining all this stuff that we've been putting together, and just extend occasionally a meeting.
Does that
But
work?
start it, if it's going to be longer, we start earlier.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
There's 11 bi-weekly meeting times before December 31st.
Holy moly.
Where does the year go?
Well, 26 divided by 2.
Thank you. That's why you're on FinCom. I mean, how do people feel, I mean, how much do we think we can get done between week to week?
So I just want to ask, like, I know the charge.
Yeah.
But what's the end goal? Like, how soon do we plan on wrapping this up? Also, is it 6 months and then we're ready for town meeting, or is it,
That
we
was-
extend this several fiscal cycles?
Well,
And we meet,
It was to
Especially-
align with this fiscal year's budget process, so it'd be in time for when the budget starts, as far as,
the charge says by the end of the year, present recommendations as they stand. It doesn't mean they'll be done, complete, but as they stand. I mean, so town meeting, that's November, I highlighted it. Special town meeting is November 12th.
I don't think it's possible for, like, if all we're doing is recommending and then having other people ratify, I don't think it's possible to get it done by November.
No. And what would happen at special town meeting with that information?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we have it so that it ends,
for the fiscal '26 budget.
Yeah.
if it ends at
yeah,
the
okay.
end of the calendar year, then that would give the other committees in town, 5 months to get things ready for May 2025 town meeting. That seems more, I mean, I shouldn't say that. Creator of many budgets, is that doable?
Depends how many we're asking her to create this year.
Heather, did you share
Under
the
20
schedule
with me
with
now, so it's all-
school?
Yes,
Okay. So
you saw the budget calendar?
the budget calendar, do you have that?
I saw it.
Okay. Tony, do you have it?
I sent it to,
I'm sure.
Oh, okay,
Today,
okay.
then, yeah.
No, it was a couple days ago.
yeah.
yeah,
I have a copy of it.
Evan had forwarded it to this group.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay.
But most of those people were on that email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, what if we had it so that we're gonna meet for an hour every 2 weeks, starting at 7, ending at 8, and then we will end at the end of the calendar year, and we'll have like, as needed, 2-hour meetings with an earlier start time of 6 o'clock. Does that work for everybody?
Still before the end of the calendar year?
Yeah, I just think that like, in order for it to be something that's useful to the other committees, we have to give them the ability to respond.
Yeah.
And if we set it for special town meeting, I mean, how many meetings is that? I mean, we have
Not
like-
enough.
Yeah, not enough. I mean,
3 less.
George mentions the end of the year.
Yeah, the charge has the end of calendar year.
yeah, so like if we keep that as the end of the year, that still gives them 5 or 4.5 months to get a
Yeah.
response.
The point of that was to try to take some of those recommendations and
Pass them off.
apply them to the FY '25, '6 budget.
Okay. So, does anybody have any other ideas?
Do you think every other week is,
I
you
mean,
worry me now with 11.
Since this was our first meeting, I've been worried.
You might be the only person who worries more than me.
So looking at the other reports that have been printed, that you sent
I know,
around,
I
but
know.
some of them did them in 3 months.
I know, but
And
that
I'd be
some of
curious
them,
how often they met.
some had like half-day workshops.
Oh, God.
To be fair, I will present another position. I will call this the devil's advocate position because it's my father's recommendation.
Yeah, I
know
know,
he emailed
I
you.
know.
His idea was to do this as like a one-day workshop. And I'm gonna go on record as saying I disagree with my dad because I think that that would not produce the sort of overtime thoughtfulness that would be required. I mean, one of the things that I learned in the budget process was you get more ideas the longer it goes. And maybe that's just because it's like quasi-negotiation, or maybe that's because things that get clarified. But I think that there is an option where we just have like 2 or 3 really big meetings. And I don't know what people prefer, but like if we had 3 3-hour meetings and we started them, early, like, 3 o'clock in the afternoon to go to 6, is that better?
I
know there'd be-
couldn't do it during the week. It's
Yeah.
it's just not
I
doable.
mean, I couldn't either, but.
It would have to be a 6 to 9 and I don't, yeah.
Sounds like a finance committee thing.
That's normal, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I think that also doesn't give the opportunity to do research, pull up the data we need
Yeah.
and run numbers.
I like the homework model better, because then we're not wasting other people's time.
I do too.
We'd have to be very organized.
You do it on your own time, as you can do it.
I would think the group, because I won't be here for, would want to pick one of the plans that's already been done and use that as the template. And then we're just filling in our own information and everybody take a section, maybe take a stab at it. And then you can come up with an initial draft pretty quickly.
I'll jump into the template's already there.
Yeah,
So it's just building off of that. So like you said, Heather, taking that and maybe assigning it, that's a different section to each member. Then we come back and present to each other our ideas. And each meeting, we don't have to go through all the sections in one meeting. We go through section 1, 2, and 3. Next meeting, 2, 3, 4. And then
I like Westford and Hingham. They're very similar, the two.
Westford's, I liked.
Are their meetings long?
They had long, no, I'm talking about the document,
Oh, I'm sorry.
the report, which is basically, I think of as our roadmap.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some differences, that some things they looked at really aren't our problem, we have different problems, but,
I think they have videos posted too.
In terms of the documents, one thing that I would just put out there, some of them are like kind of aspirational and long-winded. I would want to have things that I could go to FinCon and say, tell me how much these are going to cost. Then go to the select board and say, do you think these are doable? And then go to the school committee and say, do you think these are doable? But like, we should be able to put it in one page. Like, I want a one-page, this is our action items. Because like otherwise, like I said, some of them struck me as a little aspirational. I'm like, no one is served by talking in flowery terms about all this stuff. Like, just, here's the money issues that we need to deal with.
see, I look at them and I see a lot of data to back up their recommendations.
Oh, I think that's fine. I
A
like
lot of it
all the
is-
data, but like, it's like,
Oh, to summarize, like the takeaways.
but like, not only that, but like, if we want to have something that's deliverable to people and the public, it's just, the longer, more complex you make it, the less people are going to.
Yeah.
And I think this is like a fundamental problem with the open meeting law, is that we make these meetings so complex and procedural that like Dave Passios is the only guy that regularly attends because it's too complex. There's just you don't get to the substance. It's overwhelmed by procedure. And I like the data. I think we have to have that. But again, I think that's like part of the homework model, that we'll have the data available, but that we have like a 1 or 2 page
Yeah.
deliverable.
The data, that's the homework, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, do we have an idea of what we want to do for the meetings themselves? Because I don't think we took a vote on that. Do we need to take a vote?
consensus.
No motion required? Alright. The next thing on the agenda is setting up a shared documents. Doesn't the town just use Google Drive?
we don't have one
We
set up.
use, we have Microsoft Office 365.
Oh, okay. I know the school committee uses Google Drive. I don't care what anybody, like,
What,
whatever anybody wants to
Isn't it
use.
Google Drive for the select board?
We do, but that's just through one email account.
Oh, okay.
I
See,
can
don't know.
create it and send you an invite to it, so
Okay.
it's fine.
We need some place to
Store.
put
We have
things.
SharePoint. We can-
Right, but they don't have Microsoft Office 365, so you can't invite them.
Oh, I
think
see.
so.
I see.
Related to that, which I thought of after, was a website to put the charge on the town website. Is that, and that's Kara?
Yep, Kara can create a page.
Has the charge been updated with the, adding the alternate?
No.
Do you want me to do that? We voted, what's today? Tuesday for the alternate, an option to have any FinCom, Select Board, or School Committee to have an alternate as well.
Okay.
So I just have to update the charge to say that.
Just a heads up, the Hingham Task Force met between September 10th and January 31st.
Every week.
Whoa.
And they met weekly, so they met 26 times.
In a month?
In 4 months.
Well, Hingham is, a lot bigger.
And when January
Westford's
came
big,
around,
too.
they met January 20th, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, and 31st.
That is called a divorce.
I think if we can do as much homework
Yeah,
and then just discuss what we
we
found and
found.
what we think,
yeah.
that maybe we can,
All right.
I'm hoping.
Do we want to go to agenda item 4? Discussion of strategy and plan to accomplish charge. I just want to say this, I did send Heather an email before asking for towns that are comps that we use for labor negotiations, so we can try to get a sense of how their funding works. I don't know if anybody else would find that useful, but I just don't know enough about municipal government to say one way or the other.
So one thing Westford did was they had comps for school and comps for town.
Okay.
And I actually found, I think I might have sent it to Carol and Kate during the budget season, comps. I was looking for schools and not using DART, I was looking at, similar number of buildings, non-regional, similar school.
Yeah.
So I found some, and I still have that presentation. I can dump that into our shared drive if that's useful.
Yeah,
Do you agree that those are good comps for school? I don't know.
We also developed, when we were doing work for school committee, a list of comparable towns based on Carol and Dr. Burnham's insights into
Yeah.
education.
It's really hard,
It is really hard.
because most of them are regional
Yes.
around.
For town, we try to use for each collective bargaining unit the same towns, but it's not completely, doesn't completely align with all groups. So for instance, the fire department, not all the same towns that we generally use have a full-time paramedic level staff. So those might differ slightly in comp towns for that unit, but I can put that list together.
Okay. What do we envision our end product being? Recommendations to the other, that result in warrants a town meeting? I mean, I'm asking a question, I don't know. This was your idea, Renee. What was your idea? What did you think it was gonna result in?
So one thing was to look at money coming in, money going out, right? To look at possible alternate sources of revenue other than property tax override. but that included as well. And forecasting out what our expenses look like from departments, from schools, to maintain services in town, to do projects that are on the radar for the town. I know capital planning met last night, and they're gonna be doing that for the capital plan, looking like 5 years out. And so I think we can lean very heavily. They said they wanted input into this, and bring it. I think we can lean really heavily on them to cover the capital side of things. But to take a current and future-looking check on how healthy we are, basically. Like, do we need another override to maintain services? Can we save money through any efficiency, consolidation, outsourcing, anything, any way to save money, grants, whatever, and while trying to bring in more money into town? Anything to alleviate the burden on the taxpayer without sacrificing the services and the quality of life in town. And still be able, to grow, the town's growing, to not, ideally not just like stay, status quo, but to continue to improve the town.
I think it depends on what your level of tolerance is for spending, because it's good. Capital planning is going to show that we're going to have a deficit many years going out if we don't fund at the level that our requests are at. But do we need to fund at that level every year? There's other unknowns such as TCP, the building
The whole municipal building plan.
yes, that whole plan.
That is
the future of Turkey
biggest elephant in the
Hill.
room.
There's two big major building projects that could encompass more than 2 buildings, but those are the things that, like, where's the tolerance level for that? When we went through the process for municipal building design, looking at TCP, that tolerance level was reached when we got the revised estimate for what it was going to cost for that renovation. So I think that's got to be part of the discussion.
One idea that I had in thinking about how this would work is to try to figure out, like, look at it from like a couple of different variables, like your idea of like revenue, excluding property tax and override, plus expenses. The other thing that I had thought of is if we organize our expenses in terms of things that we don't really have a choice about. So like, for example, when something comes before a school committee and somebody says, well, like, you guys are spending a ton of money per student on this cohort of students. Unfortunately, or I think fortunately, because we're a democracy, we have an obligation to provide a free, appropriate public education. We cannot not do that. That is how a town like ours would end up in a devastatingly expensive lawsuit. And so when we look at the budget at the school committee level, things that are tied to free, appropriate public education, you just kind of like grit your teeth and say, fine, it's going to go up. But I think that ranking or aggregating expenses in terms of things that are unavoidable, like, we don't have to have the greatest streets in the world. I know that Michael Ray Jeffries prides himself on our streets, but like, there's no constitutional mandate to have great streets. It's a wonderful benefit, and I'm glad I live here, in part because the streets are well maintained, but it's not at the same level of necessity as something like a constitutional mandate. And it doesn't pose the same level of legal risk or cost risk if we shirk on that. And I'm not saying that we should ever get into this balancing match between like one thing versus another, but like, I think the idea that we rank them by things that are mandated by law versus things we like to do because we like to have a pleasant town to live in, I think that'll give us a clearer picture of where we have flexibility.
That will help. That actually is how I do my home budget.
Right, right, right.
I have all the utilities, food I have to eat, I gotta keep the lights on, and then everything
Yeah.
else is fudgeable.
But I mean, like, for me, when I do my business budgeting, I can't not pay my bar dues. And so when they go up $226 in a
Yeah.
year, I just grit my teeth and pay it. But I think if we had that as one of the filters for this process, that it would help us figure out where, like, you know, if it's $100 for something that's legally obligated versus $100 for something that's not legally obligated, and we only have $100, then that makes our decision for us.
Yeah.
And we should know that going in where we have to put money.
But some of those obligated expenses may be negotiable, like the healthcare or insurance for municipal. Do we have, I mean, those are negotiated agreements? No?
With
From
the
time to
Public
time?
Employee Committee.
So some of these obligatory costs could be negotiated, or we could go to a different vendor.
Oh,
or
right, right,
whatever.
right, right,
Okay,
right,
okay.
right, right. I
I mean, there's
don't,
still some, I mean, probably not so much for the school. You're
our big
kind of-
problem is that we have a
locked in.
couple of major fixed costs or costs determined by the state,
Yeah.
like, you know, how much they can charge for out-of-district placements. We don't have any control over that.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't even have the ability to protest when they change it. So like, we just get a bill and it goes up and
Yeah.
you grit your teeth. So. So if we have your view on like the inflow and outflow of cash.
Well, yeah, and to be, yeah, more efficient and get it, I don't, and I don't know if many people do have a good picture of everything that's happening. And I think that's one of the reasons to get reps from all the different committees at the same table, right?
You know, for us, when we went through the budgeting process of the school, there were a lot of people that were like, I don't know what your budget is. And I think that part of that is the nature of municipal funding in the state of Massachusetts. But another part of it is that it's really complicated.
It is very complicated.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you're talking about you're doing your home budget.
Yeah.
It's not like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know, like, I don't know when Desi's gonna come and say, we approved a 6% increase, even though we've never approved more than a 1% increase in a year. Like, we just don't know that. And so I think that if we had as one of the deliverables, that the public would be able to have access to, maybe not fully understand, because I think that's a lot that you would impose upon a person, but at least access to information about the budget. So if somebody really wanted to dig in, if somebody was brilliant and smart and great with money, and his name was Evan, he could sit down and figure out exactly how much, you know, it costs to repave the roads. But I feel like when we're working on behalf of the public, to not be able to say, here's your bill, or here's at least an approximation of your bill, I could say from the school committee's perspective, that was a really frustrating process. I mean, this is why we have somebody who created 9 budgets in 2 months. So, does that accord with your vision of how the charge would be executed?
I think so. I mean, I think so. It's like, I don't know yet, right? Like, I don't know how things are how they're gonna shake out. It's, cause, yeah, I don't know, Evan's being awfully quiet.
I'm reading and listening.
The last thing I'll say about the strategy and the end product is, I think that fundamentally, the town has like a fork in the road, right? Where we could go in one of 2 paths. And it depends on how we conceive of our community. Do we conceive of our community as like a bedroom community where people leave and go to work? Or do we conceive of our community as like a place like Hudson, where there's like a very, or Littleton, where there's like a very heavy level of business and commerce going on, and people live there? And I think that, you know, the old saying, like, there's no solutions, only trade-offs. If, as we're doing these budgets and trying to project into the future, if we have that sort of fork in the road in mind, I think it's gonna be easier for us to project costs. Cause like your point about us growing so fast, like, what's the value of having like another condo go in terms of adding to the tax base? I mean, it's some, but like, if a large corporation decided to buy one of our municipal buildings in like a dream scenario to take it off our hands and like start a 100-person, tech firm, that would be a different vision of the town of Lunenburg, and it would have a much different impact on town finances. So I don't know how we do the
So,
projection.
it's not a single recommendation that we can bring forward. You can bring multiple, and in fact, some towns did bring multiple recommendations forward. So you could play out different scenarios. This is what this would mean, this is what this would mean.
That sounds confusing.
Yeah.
For visioning, I mean, you might want to bring in the master planning committee rep, because they're in that process of what do we want our community to look like.
Yeah, but that is a lot of, yeah, that sounds good. Everyone's like in dream world, and there's no money to do any of it.
That's why I said, where's your tolerance? Yeah. I mean, there's your open space. Of course, we want a lot of open space, but there comes a price tag to everything, so.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be blunt. If we stay on the bedroom community path, which I think we're pretty clearly on, people are just gonna have to tolerate more taxes. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's only so many efficiencies we could find, and at the end of the day, I think that those efficiencies aren't going to make up for the increased costs that we have. I mean, our teachers are well below par. I was talking to people about the paras, and, they're doing very difficult work for incredibly low pay. Incredibly low pay. And it's that way across the board with municipal employees.
Yeah, we've heard about that, yeah.
And so like, if we don't come to the realization that you either pick a path, and if you pick the path we're currently on, it's gonna be higher taxes, I just don't want people to be like surprised or upset, because like, there's only so many choices we have. And I think that, Heather's point about what are you willing to tolerate is right. So I think that we have to have that in mind when we present whatever. And while it might be confusing, if there's a realistic path to having like significantly more business development, maybe that option is worth presenting. But I don't know. I don't know if there is.
I
Heather?
think if you're gonna go the path of tax, then I think then that would almost push our charge to an equitable form of tax. You can't just say, and I know you're not saying this, but we couldn't just put forward and say, the tax will be this, and that's
Right.
the solution if you want to keep teachers or to keep whomever you want to keep in the town. But you can't just place that burden upon everyone
Correct.
equally.
Yeah.
You'd have to place the tax burden equitably, which then goes to the select board, which then goes to the state level, and it gets much more confusing. Whereas if you have other revenue generation, it's a little easier to enact, I guess. Because I assume if we're gonna do a tiered tax system, we would have to get approval at the state level.
Similar to the senior means test.
Right.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Similar to the senior means tested.
Oh, okay.
What Lewin's putting.
Home rule petition that. we did.
So, I mean, when I put I guess I was thinking a lot more practically of how to break this up into digestible chunks that could be taken on as homework. Like I think Hingham did it too. Westford started out with just looking at the demographics of the town, looking at historical spending for various categories, departments, whatnot, comparing it to the benchmark towns.
The first 50 pages of
Yeah.
Hingham's report, that's all it is.
Yeah, and Westford starts the same way. Do you think that's worth doing? Because we find out, hey, we're not so different, everyone else is in the same boat, or we find out, well, we're really on the low end of this and the high end of that.
It's up to the chair.
I make a public comment.
I don't see why not.
You're the chair, it's up, it might help.
Oh, but you should come to the, you have to be
You gotta
recorded.
identify yourself and
Okay. Laura Brzezowski, 21 Francis Ave. I'm on the school committee too, and I'm the Anthony's alternate. I might want to suggest that your next meeting, you guys do some homework and work on some sort of demographics presentation about the demographics of the town, so you guys know what you're working with. With the school budget, I found it really helpful to know the demographics of the students we were serving. I found it interesting to know the percentages at each school of students who were getting free and reduced lunches, and which of our not which, but how many families we serve below the poverty line. So it might be helpful for you for your very first meeting. Everyone's writing, this is very intimidating. It might be helpful to start off by examining the demographics of the town, what you're looking for, what your population above 65 is, what your population of children are, the number of students in the school system versus the number of senior citizens, maybe like the number of roads in town, how often they're getting paved. Like, I think it might help to just start with a very large set of numbers and data, which I realize is a ton of work for you guys, but it might help to just start coming at it with the facts so that you can get a good layout of the town and what you're working with.
about 75% of that is on the Wikipedia page for the town of Lunenburg.
But I think it's also looking at the trend.
Yeah.
You know, like one of these looked at the student population, like in Westford, and it kind of started, it was climbing and then it leveled off. It's been level for a while. You know.
Yeah, some of these charts that you see on Westford's, I mean, we can get that information probably from DESI, has a lot of that broken down, right, to use that for your budget presentations. DLS, the data bank, has a lot of those charts.
I have a lot of them in here.
Yeah, so I think,
I've already made probably 50% of that.
Yeah, so if you guys wanted to all
During
get it
budget
all
season?
together, and it might help citizens if you kind of do a little presentation about this is what we're working with. I find it very useful to know, you know, like generally home prices, median home prices, and then the distribution of that and the tax burden that people are carrying. So,
It's all in, the other towns did it.
yeah,
Same
so
thing.
I think if you guys started off with that as the basis of further discussions, it'll help you go forward. That's all.
I think the hard part is finding the benchmarks. Benchmark towns, the comparables. Maybe not from the municipal side, but from like, I found 3 that I thought were decently similar, just based on,
Was Maynard one of them, just out of curiosity?
No.
Okay.
why?
Oh, because when I did the same project, Maynard was the one that came closest. I was like, oh, this is interesting.
I don't know why that didn't show up. I had Tingsboro, Uxbridge, and Littleton,
Oh, Littleton, yeah.
and
But Littleton is. a weird
Linfield a
one.
little bit. Anyway. I think there is a bunch of stuff that was done during budget season along those lines that we could probably,
Repackage.
we're not starting from nothing.
Do we need to do this for town employees too? Do we need to know who they are and like how old they are and what they're making if we need to
Oh.
project costs?
I don't think we need to know who they are and how, what do you guys, I mean,
Anonymously, maybe. I think people at
do
certain
we need
level.
to know that,
number
I mean,
of-
if someone's getting close to retirement age?
Right, that's what I'm primarily.
Whatever that
thinking
is.
About retirement stuff.
I don't think we can know that. I think we just know their level publicly.
I mean, we can know their age. Their age is a public record. Your birth record is a public record.
not for, I think,
Not an open meeting,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I think Laura has another public comment.
I don't mean
Yeah.
to take this longer. You guys also, salaries are a significant portion
Yeah.
of the town budget and the school's budget, and employee retention has been an issue on both sides. So it might be useful to get information about retention, salary, maybe, I mean, salary comps I think might come later, but it might be very useful for you guys to get that information as well. I do think the salaries are a significant portion of the budget.
They are, and health insurance benefits.
All right, I'm gonna stop now.
Good point.
I mean, most employees aren't residents of Lunenburg.
Right.
Is that true of the teachers? I thought there were quite a few teachers that lived here.
There are, but it's not overwhelming.
Do we need any action items on the discussion of strategy and plan? No vote?
Well, I don't think we need a vote.
Okay. So action items for next meeting, I think probably need a demographics information for the town. If we had like a list of comps, we could probably get some comps and then get relevant information on employees.
So do we want to try to just generate the same kinds of graphs that Westford did? Is that, I don't remember all of them.
They look very
They
similar to
have a
Hingham's.
lot of towns, a lot of.
Hingham used 19 benchmark towns.
Yeah, how many did?
That's not useful.
No,
That's too many.
well, they did 8 on either side of them.
Oh, okay.
Or 9, I don't know, 9 and 10 on either side of them.
Westford, did they use 36?
21 on the town side and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
But in their demographic.
15 on the school side.
Like Heather mentioned too, a lot of that information's already in DLS. Because they already track a lot of that trends, comparable towns, expenditures,
Yeah, you could almost,
demographics. You can almost, actually, I was just gonna say, you pull up almost everything that
Yeah.
we're looking for.
that's where I pulled from.
As far as the demographics go, what about, like, this projected revenue, like pie chart, which,
We're getting feedback. We're here it now.
oh,
It's the nightly feedback. It happens every time.
is this kind of information available in DLS?
Which chart?
The revenue, like the pie chart,
I don't think
projected
project-
revenue?
not
You've done that in your
I used
budget
that pie
presentation.
chart.
Yeah.
So I have.
But
it
you
for
did that
this.
on your own?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't think DLS does projections, they just do
okay,
actuals
They
and
can-
historicals.
Yeah.
okay.
But with pulling that, I mean, that's a huge table. With pulling that, you could do your own sort of benchmark towns by, you could almost organize them and find the 5 towns above and below Lunenburg for each individual category and have like a heat map for how many of those towns are repeated and take the most repeated towns. Or you could choose it on income, or you could choose it on average house cost, or you could choose it on, there's so many different options to choose your benchmark towns.
So DESI it's DESI, right?
DESI has that as well.
Yeah, DESI has a set of comps for your town,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like 60 places, it was like 5 places. Would it be helpful to basically say to them, how do they generate comparability? Because like, there's only, there's like 11 towns in the state of Massachusetts that have between 11,999 people and 11,000 people. So like, just population.
I think
there's not that much.
population's like the first cut, right?
Okay.
In my mind, I don't know what you guys think, but,
I agree. I think one of the issues is, in population, I know that one of these towns is like vastly wealthier than we will ever be. So it's like, that doesn't help us. So like Heather, when you guys generate comps for collective bargaining, what are the criteria for comparability?
We look at population, budget, staffing levels. I think if you're going to look more broadly, looking at percentage of residential parcels versus commercial and industrial, because that's going to make a difference to your tax base and your
looking at local receipts as your primary source of income versus.
Right, or how that's
Versus
split,
tax.
like if you have a big commercial base, it's gonna, less of an impact on your residents.
You have enough of a tax base, or enough of a commercial, that you actually have a split rate,
Right.
and then,
That's why you see some smaller towns that have very little commercial, their budgets aren't as big as well.
right. I mean, would it make sense to reach out to Sean Cronin at DLS and ask him for what he would consider to be the benchmarks, or have someone find our benchmarks for us? Or the equivalent at DESI, Tracy at DESI maybe?
I think, doesn't the benchmark on DLS do that?
It does, but it's not
You can
necessarily
put
the
in
best.
filters.
It's, okay. I haven't tried that. We'll give that a shot. Okay. No, when it does, DLS website.
Dr. Burnham, would we be able to get that list of comps from DESI and have them figure out what they're using to generate comparability? Or do you know off the top of your head? Or is this a bureaucratic black box?
Well, there are some metrics that they report back, so I'm guessing that that's what they're basing everything on.
If you look at like the DART comparisons, they start with enrollment, and they have students with disabilities, they have, low income percent, and then they have the growth, and then they have achievement
Is that what you're talking
metrics.
about?
And they generate
Never
a
seen
group of about 10 towns that are comparable.
But generally speaking,
Yeah, it's a lot of
the
data.
two heavy hitter benchmarks that they use are the wealth of the community and the enrollment
Okay.
in the school district.
So if we're talking,
Does the number of buildings factor in?
No, I don't think so.
See, and I use that because that's an expense, a big expense. It's a lot of maintenance, and then if you're talking, it's potentially more new buildings you would have to build.
I don't believe that we could not run that as an inquiry.
Do you think that should factor into the comparison? You don't? You don't think the number of buildings should? When looking at budgets?
I'll tell you what, when we figure out what the comparable towns are, we can make a call to
Yeah.
their school department and find out how many buildings they have, what's the age of their school buildings, so on and so forth, but
does it, one thing about, I see why the buildings would matter in one sense, but in another sense, if building maintenance doesn't represent a significant cost, then the number of buildings, like if you had 40 buildings or 4 buildings, but it's only, 5% of the budget, then is it really important to know the,
And it can
Really
be
the
deceiving
age.
because the age is not even necessarily reliable, because we have a lot of costs in repairs at our newest building.
I know.
That is the building that costs us the most money to maintain and repair, and it's the newest school we have.
That's why I just think in general, the number of buildings just means more things that go wrong, more maintenance, more costs, right? Independent of the age.
Well, I think the more high-tech systems you have, the more costly it gets.
so if we got comps for next meeting, and we got comps on the municipal side and the school side, and then we had the different demographic information about the town and the demographic information about town employees, does that sound like enough action items to do?
I think that would probably lay the foundation.
When you say demographic information on employees, like what are you looking for?
Like the number of people we have, how much they're making, how old they are, or how close to retirement we could project they are, how long they've worked here.
The size of the departments and the size?
Correct. Yeah, those kind of things. I mean, I don't think any of those are protected information.
Are you also looking at class type of group that they're in? I mean, so you have, because we have small departments, like 2-people departments sometimes, or 1-person departments sometimes. And it may be a administrative assistant and the department head.
Does their classification impact the cost of the town?
Yes, depending on if they're an administrative assistant or a department head.
But does their classification impact the cost of the town separate and apart from their salary?
As far as what, benefited versus non-benefited?
So like,
or-
I don't know how this works in the municipality, but my dad was in the military. And so like, if you're a GS-15, you have a certain salary and then you get like your cost of living for where you live and all that kind of stuff. But aside from the cost of living, there wasn't anything, aside from the salary and cost of living, there really wasn't anything else to the classification. It was just basically like a salary grid. Are you saying that there's some other cost related to their classification other than salary?
Benefited versus non-benefited.
Okay.
Yes.
So maybe that would be helpful, but I don't know if we need to get into the minutia of their classification, if it's not gonna help figure out how much money we're gonna spend. I mean, I'm happy to,
Yeah, I wouldn't think that more as far as impact, long-term impact, and how that plays into. Because, yeah, I think you just generally have to look at number of people eligible to retire to know
Yeah.
impact on pension and your
We should go to
OPEB
that
costs.
Yeah, it's a multivariate calculation at that
Yeah.
point.
I
You
don't,
have the collective bargaining, the salary tables.
yeah, I don't know if we need that much
Yeah,
granularity.
I don't,
I mean, unless, I mean, you know this better than anybody here, unless you think it's essential to figure out how much it's gonna cost.
I mean, I think if I remember looking at the reports, it's basically, the size of the department, maybe break out salary and non-salary expense, spend of that department, you know what I mean? So, town X is spending, twice as much on DPW than we are, and they're half the size of our DPW, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up. Maybe that level is sufficient?
Yeah, I mean, because like what I'm envisioning is we go through and we say, this is an aberrantly high or aberrantly low level of spending for this particular position in a comparable town. Or,
To the position level?
well, not to the position, but
Oh,
like, you know what I
okay.
mean? Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, no,
But like,
okay.
this department is costing us
Yes.
way more or way less
Yes.
than everybody else. And then use that information not only to figure out like, does this department need more money or less money? But like, if they're like departments that are shared and, there's been a history of it working, consolidating so that we don't have overlap. I'm trying to figure out like how we would use the information, and I don't think the level of granularity of like their classification would
Yeah,
matter.
no.
There's a public comment.
Yes, the one public. You probably also want to gather during your information gathering phase, I was going to say the union membership versus not union membership.
Oh, yeah.
Because of any adjustments in salary would require bargaining.
That's a good
So
idea.
that's going to
For
be
the school
information you're going to
side?
want.
You're-
No,
you're
for the
talking-
town side
oh.
too.
Does the town has other, I mean, I know the police department, the fire
We
department.
have 4 collective bargaining
Okay.
units,
Yeah, that makes sense, because,
and one.
DPW
DPW,
secretary.
fire, police, and clerical. And then we have the salary administration plan, which is all non-union,
okay.
and then we have contractual positions.
But you're going to.
Similar to the school, has contractual positions.
That makes sense. I mean, to me, those are obligations we can't get out of, so.
Yeah.
Not that we want to get out of it. I'm just saying, like, those are obligations that have been preset for us.
And that's information you just guys are going to want for, depending on what direction you go. And I don't think it's going to affect the big picture early on stuff, but it'll be information you guys want at your fingertips for later. And maybe when each contract ends. Might be useful information to have too.
And it's also, different towns are organized slightly differently. They'll have different departments, combined departments shared across town. So that should emerge as we
Yeah.
look at the comps.
Is there anything we want to put on for action items for next meeting? It sounds like we gotta go do a lot of digging.
So are we all gonna do this, do we want to break it up some way?
I'll volunteer to do the comps for the school. Because
Okay.
I know we have that information relatively ready at hand for a whole bunch of different reasons. Like, all the time we're talking about this.
I can do the comps for at least, not the employee side of the town portion, but at least the town demographics. Since I have, it's,
Oh, yeah, probably need to pick the comparable. We'll use the DESI comps, because I think that's easiest,
so
and we'll have that information.
I just, thanks to the town manager, this would have been super helpful during budget, and I can't wait for it during next budget season. DLS has a filtration system for comps. So there are 8 towns, including Lunenburg, that have a population between 10,000 and 13,000, that have a single-family tax bill between 5,000 and 8,000, and that have a income per capita of 34,000 to 54,000. So that's the either side of of Lunenburg's numbers. And if you organize those by population density because it's a small number, it basically goes Rehoboth, Carver, Lakeville, Lunenburg, Brewster, Pepperell, Hanson.
See, those are none of our comps.
Exactly. But those are the ones that are the most similar to us, at least in terms of generalized demographic.
I don't even know where some of those towns are.
Bristol County, Plymouth County, Barnstable County, Middlesex, and Plymouth. South Shore.
Yeah.
Is it equalized valuations on properties too?
So Brewster is a little higher than everybody else, but everyone else is between 140,000 and 200,000. And Lunenburg's at 157. So similar.
So should we look at those and the comps you use for collective bargaining?
Yeah, because we generally are more in our region.
Right.
I'm curious to know how those look on this
Compare.
table.
Right.
Some of the ones I know we use are Littleton, Pepperell, Westminster, Air, Foxborough.
None of those are our comps.
We're on the lower end of the tax levy though, or the higher end of the tax levy.
We have Groton sometimes in there too, which is on the higher than us.
Interesting to see how that compares to DESI.
I think there was one.
One of those,
One.
are those mostly regional schools
Littleton is the one that
you use?
would come up as a,
Yeah,
as a
but are the
comp.
rest regional?
The comps that are fairly consistent year after year after year were the ones that Renee mentioned earlier. Tingsboro, Uxbridge.
Just like a question, does anybody know why the town's comps are different depending on what aspect you're looking at? I mean, it would seem like the tax base and the population and the wealth should all generate similar outcomes.
It's too many variables. You've got the commercial side of it, you've got the residential side of it. I mean, for example, Carver has a split tax rate of 14.59 for residentials and 22.98 for commercial.
Got it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carver.
Carver, does it say what
their
percent
budget?
commercial they have?
They have,
I've only got about 1 minute.
Get a mute, Dave.
Salvatore, I don't know how many times I've done, yeah, if you would, I moved the key into it,
okay.
We'll call him Mr. Passios.
Yeah, we're gonna, yeah.
We're almost there.
Not sure. Doesn't have it specifically on here. I'd have to calculate it, which,
So I was surprised Warren Westford was a single tax rate. Like, they don't have more, I thought they had a lot more commercial than they do.
Do we have anything else we want to put on for next meeting?
I don't think so. When would the next meeting be?
yeah, when are we meeting next? If we're doing 7 o'clock, that gives us Monday or Friday, and Friday, the place is closed, so that gives us Mondays.
Sounds good. What's everyone's availability like next Monday? I know that sounds terrible. Oh, no, wait, that's only 2
Like in-
days.
like
That's
in-
dumb.
Like in 5 days?
What about the I'm on vacation. 22nd? What's everybody's availability on the 22nd?
That's good for me.
Are we starting at what time?
7. Done at 8. Done at 8.
I'll have to check, because there's one of the band concerts I'm supposed to attend
Okay.
upcoming.
Oh, that's right, we're gonna compete with the band.
Oh, okay.
Monday nights.
Do we want to
7.
change it then, if we're gonna, I don't want to like, take people away. What about availability for the 29th?
There's a band concert.
Every Monday for next 4 weeks.
All right. From 6 to 7, that'll be tight. Is everybody available at 6? I mean, if it's inconvenient,
On the 29th?
either on the 29th or the 22nd.
Yes.
Yeah, only if we have an ad hoc select board meeting on the 22nd. But if that starts at 7 and we're out of here by 7, I can do it.
I'll either be remote, because I'm on vacation on the 22nd, or I'll have Laura step in, depending on.
Already shirking the chair
I
responsibility.
know, it's just like, this is tough. So we want to do 22nd at 6? From 6 to 7?
Oh. Could that be,
Next week, you're meeting twice.
we are, do you know that?
Yes.
So then we shouldn't need to meet on the 22nd.
Shouldn't need to.
Okay. She has the inside info.
And are we going to just consistently meet here?
So the 22nd,
I did this because Evan's hopping over there in 20 minutes.
Right.
the planning board should be meeting on the 22nd in this room.
Okay, so do we want to do it, can we do it at the meeting room in the high school?
I should be able to secure one
The
of
library,
them.
maybe?
Oh, yeah, that's
Or
fine.
Ritter.
You want to do the,
Monday night.
Library would be
Monday
The
night
library
is
is
Board
at-
of Health.
can we tell them what to do?
Tell who?
The library, I mean, like, none of us are.
You can just book a room, book the
Oh,
conference
okay,
room.
okay.
But you
Yeah,
have to be registered to book a room. You can't just sign up for a room anymore.
we can do it.
Okay.
Yes, if I set them up, yes, they are set up for times.
So do we want to do it in the library?
Fine with me. I'll go wherever. 22nd at 6?
With a remote option.
Yeah. Well,
I may
he
have to be
needs-
remote that
and
night.
He needs a remote anyway.
Yeah.
Can we do remote in the library?
Yes.
I'm not the vice chair. Nope. I'm nothing.
No, I am nothing, sir.
All right, so, Budget Task Force meeting in the library at 6 PM from 6 to 7 on the 22nd. With remote option, I will be coming in remote.
Mr. Passios has his hand up.
All right, we are now at public comment. Mr. Passios, if you want to unmute yourself and make your comment.
Yeah, I'm going to let the video off again. There's still a problem with the camera on my laptop, so it's really annoying, so I'm going to leave that off. As long as you guys can hear me, we're good. Couple of comments that I've jotted down during the meeting. This meeting and a meeting last night, there was a section where discussion went in the direction of keeping down what we're already doing correctly and very well, i.e., pavement management, fire department, police department. I feel those three areas we've done very well and continue to do very well. To keep that down and bring them below par or even down from where they are now is unconscionable in anybody's eyes as far as I'm concerned, and you will not get the support of the town if you start doing stuff, suggesting stuff like that. My thought was that this committee was going to come up with the long-term needs for the town in all areas, especially the departments on the town side. The school was pretty severely vetted last year as to what the needs are, and they change on an annual basis. But I'd like to see come out of this committee a report that says this is what the town needs to look like in 2026, 2027, 2028. This is what it's going to cost, and hand it to the Board of Selectmen and say, okay, you figure out how to pay for it. Because trying to cheap down and save money and all this other stuff and thinking the state's going to give us more money is a pipe dream. Okay, I'll leave that alone for now. The other thing, a lot of discussion this evening about salaries, and even through the entire budget season and actually multiple years, claiming that salaries are the biggest issue with our turnover. I disagree. The salaries for employees across the working public, municipal, private sector, whatever. If a person is happy and in a good work environment, they're willing to work for less if it works for them and, you know, they're close to home, so on and so forth. I present to you that we have serious workplace issues, and that's a portion of our turnover. Throwing money at that is not going to fix it. I think that's it for this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Passios, I just want to say it is always nice to hear from you, and we appreciate, or I don't know, I'm going to not speak for anybody else. I appreciate your insights as somebody who's seen this over a long-term basis. So thank you for making your comments.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right.
Soon, Dave.
We are 3 minutes over, so I think I'm going to make, anybody have a motion they would like to make?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Recording